Hey everyone, welcome in. Welcome to this live Student event here in Idaho Falls. My name is Andy Emmelkamp. I'm an assistant product marketing manager at Student. We're excited to host this webinar and kind of show you guys another new and exciting product. If you've been following along, we've released a lot of new products recently. We came out with a sports marketing simulation, an entrepreneurship simulation, a career readiness simulation, and now a public speaking simulation. So we're really excited about that. Without further ado, go ahead, type in the chat. If you haven't been to a StuCamp event before, the chat is open to use throughout the whole event. So type in where you guys are coming in from, maybe any fun plans you guys have for this holiday season. I've heard that some people are already in for their fall break and things like that. So exciting stuff. Aloha from Hawaii and Arkansas. Yeah, it's so exciting. Glad to have you guys here. We got some more from Minnesota, Pennsylvania, all over. So yeah, from Idaho, another local. It's a bit cold over here, which is why I'm wearing my coat, but hope everyone else is keeping warm. Just to kind of give you an outline of how this is going to go. Like I said, my name's Andy, introducing everyone, getting everyone started on this webinar. Then we're going to have our own Joseph Ovard is going to come on and show us the simulation, show us all the cool features, what it actually does and what it can teach your students. And then we'll do a little Q&A afterward. So this shouldn't take more than an hour. So we're hoping everyone can enjoy it and then get back to their busy lives. Another kind of house item is we are doing some giveaways and prizes and things like that. We're going to give away 2 Yeti water bottles, just if you're here attending the event. So the only kind of stipulant with that is just type something in the chat, be engaged, and you can win a Yeti water bottle. And then also in the next 3 weeks, the first kind of 20 teachers to attend a demo of Mimic Public Speaking will get either a $20 Amazon, Starbucks, or if you're on the East Coast, Dunkin' Donuts gift card. And I'll give links for that in the chat when it comes time where you guys can book demos and request instructor access to the simulation. And then also at the end, I'm going to give away a little kind of assignment, quiz, resource that you guys can use in your class to help your students. So without further ado, we'll just get started with Joseph. We'll have him come on stage, show us the product. And like I said, feel free to type in the chat any of your questions. I will write them down and have it so that we can answer them afterward. So Joseph, take it away.
All right, let me share my screen really quick. I can show you guys what we're doing here today. So this is a really exciting simulation, the Mimic Public Speaking simulation. Let me jump into the introduction here. So now everybody can see my screen, right? Yes, okay, perfect. So this is a really cool simulation. There's some really cool new features that are new to StuCamp simulations that are really cool about this simulation. As far as public speaking courses go, I'm excited for what an amazing resource this is, because it gives the students real practice presenting information. There's a lot of like recorded video, doing self-review, peer review, giving that constructive feedback, and especially that self-review. A lot of students might balk at it at first, but the more that they create a presentation video, they'll even have near the end of the simulation, they'll even have practice creating slides and presenting with those slides, and they'll be able to watch that video, kind of critique themselves, see what they could do better on, and things like that, as well as get feedback from some of their classmates. So one thing that is important to note about this simulation in particular is that since there is peer review, you can set due dates for peer review to be done by and things like that, as far as so that so that you can set it so that not every student has to have everything done before other students can move on. There's different settings where you can make it so that students won't be holding each other back, but everybody will have the chance to do that peer review and all that kind of stuff. So jumping right into it, the Mimic Public Speaking Simulation it's great because it's so hands-on. The basic storyline is students are preparing to present or give a presentation at a conference called IdeaCon. So right off the bat, they're kind of introduced to this IdeaCon presentation. They're given an itinerary for speakers, and they're joining a coaching program. So your public speaking coach's name is Patrick. He's the one who will give you your introduction videos for each round for your students. And he's kind of your coach, kind of helping your students practice different fundamentals and different types of presentations all along the way, kind of slowly developing this idea for this big presentation they're going to give at the very end for kind of a final culminating project. So it's designed so that it can be, a full, semester long course where it culminates in this final presentation project. I mean, for the most part, high schools are all back in person, but if there are any remote students or any situations like that, the way that it's set up, it can very much be done remote. The students can also go in and present in class and everything as well. This kind of gives them a platform to get feedback from individual students, and then you can also assign to have them present in front of the class as well. So with that kind of introduction, they'll have kind of a coaching schedule, kind of walking them through. This is all just the introduction round. I should kind of introduce the way that for anybody that's unfamiliar with our simulation platform. Once students log in and go into the simulation, this is the very first thing that they're going to see is the introduction round with an overview and their inbox where they get all that detailed information. So the introduction video, it's just kind of giving them, hey, welcome to the simulation. Here's some basic navigation. Here's all your tools. It kind of goes over what they're going to be completing and learning. And the inbox will go into the more detail as far as the storyline goes. And so once they go on and click Get Started Now, that will send them right into round one. So the very first thing for each round of the simulation, the students are going to have a note or a quick meeting with their speaking coach. They're usually just a couple of minutes at most. A lot of them are even shorter, and just kind of introducing the storyline and what students are going to be practicing. There's a lot of really cool video features and everything in the simulation that are really exciting. But they'll have that video first, where they'll watch that video. They'll have specific tasks that they're going to complete each round. The video will kind of give them a basic overview, and all of the detailed instructions will be in their inbox. So they'll get kind of an overview of each round. And it's not necessarily a simulation where students will do a whole a round in a class period at all. You might even spend a week on one section because different parts of the simulation might require them to be in a quiet place where they can record a video and things like that. So some of it might be assigned as homework, however you want to structure it. But like I said, it could be, there's only, there's 11 rounds, and each one of these could almost, be a week, maybe 2 a week, that kind of thing. So you really could spread it out and kind of, like I said, have it culminate in that big IdeaCon speech that they create slides for and do the final presentation for as well. So once they're done with the scenario video and kind of get an overview of that round, they'll have their inbox, and it'll give them detailed instructions on Notifications Hub. They're going to be working through, starting out, some public speaking scenarios, three true to life speaking scenarios that they have to get through, and then starting to come up with ideas for their IdeaCon speech. They're going to read an excerpt from a children's book, just kind of practicing those basic speaking skills. And they're going to do self-review and peer review. So each round, there can be a lot of work to do in each round. It's very realistic to give students, a full week to kind of complete a round in the simulation would be totally reasonable, especially if there's other classwork that they're doing. So every single round, students are going to have that scenario video, the instructions in the inbox, and then in the Notifications Hub, In the coaching program, they're given or they're going to be getting questions from other coaching students. So they'll be asked questions, and this is more just kind of like a knowledge check. This isn't something that they'll be scored on. That won't impact their score or their grade in the simulation. It's just kind of a knowledge check, kind of reinforcing those public speaking concepts. So they'll get a question, they'll answer it, and they'll get immediate feedback and on how well they answered each of those questions. Whether it's good or whether it's not the best answer, they'll get feedback for each of those. So the very first thing they're going to do after they answer questions and the notifications have been round one is they're going to be put through different public speaking scenarios. Now the first one, it's kind of like a video call. What they'll do, they'll join the video call, and they'll and the first scenario is working on a group project. So they'll enter the call. They'll have a little bit of a video introduction to start off. They'll enter the call. Now, you guys, I don't think you'll be able to. Can you guys hear the audio?
You are working with her and 3 other students on a group project.
You can? Okay, perfect. So
is the final assignment for your class.
I'm going to let this play out, and then I'll talk so you don't hear both of us.
Everyone in the group has been collaborating on the project and finishing their work on time, except for Sarah. She has barely contributed to the project and hasn't communicated much with the group. With 14 days left until the due date, you've decided to meet with Sarah to convince her to start participating in the assignment. With that, go ahead and select a greeting to start the conversation.
So the way that these calls work, the video call feature works, it's like a video call, but they have time to kind of figure out how they want to frame their answers. And so they select an answer, they'll submit a response, and then they'll have a video that'll pop up.
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
So in each scenario, it's kind of cool. It's almost like a choose your own adventure type of scenario where they'll have some real different reactions depending on how they answer these questions. This is just kind of a little taste. Each one of you guys can get access to this and have a full demo and get this in a lot more detail and kind of see each of these interactions. But they can answer the questions really well and get a positive response, or they can answer them not so well and have her get really angry at you, all depending on how they do it. They can also kind of quit, leave the call, and leave the assignment at that if they so choose. So if they do leave, they can't get back on this call. So that's something you'll want to let your students know, that if they jump ship, it's not like save and continue later on. It's like a real call where you're on a call with this person. So I'm going to do that for now just because. So once that's done, it'll say this has been completed. We can't jump back on that again. So there's 3 different scenarios that they're going to have calls like this for in this first round. First one is on a group project. The next one is you're the owner of or general manager of a theater, and you're calling one of your managers to talk to her about enforcing dress code at the theater. And then there's a mentorship scenario where you're asking a successful business person to kind of mentor you. And so there's 3 varying different scenarios where you're having to kind of impromptu work on those communications skills and really kind of framing that communication. So that's the first activity they're going to do. Jumping into that is just, they're not giving a presentation yet until the end of this round, but right now they're just working on how to communicate with people effectively and really convey their ideas and what they want to convey. So next, they're doing is they're kind of conceptualizing their speech. Just kind of jotting down ideas, just kind of the overall concept or idea of their speech. And the next one, this will actually be a recorded video. So they'll have, again, and this is kind of a cool feature too. I'll show you how this one works. And they're going to be reading a small excerpt from The Tale of Peter Rabbit. They can customize the scroll and the font and the everything like that, and different themes for how they want it, to work for the teleprompter. They'll save those settings, and now they're actually going to record them reading this. Once they're actually recording, it'll give them a countdown. They'll start reading The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, they'll read through that. They can, if they read too fast, or if this is moving too fast, faster than they can read, if they set the scroll speed too fast, they can pause it, start it again, stop the recording. If they don't like, they can rewatch it right then. If they don't like it, they can re-record it, or they can submit that recording. And then it will actually submit and have it record a video. So once that recording is uploaded and in the system, they will do a self-review on how well that they did, and then they'll have a peer review where they actually review their peers and how well they did. So after I go through kind of a quick rundown of all the different rounds in the simulation, I'm going to show you what the results look like at the very end. Rather than go through and submit everything as we go, I've got a completed course where I can show you all the different results and how they look to the students as well. So moving on to round 2, a quick note I should add too. So this is the student view. This is what your students will see as they interact with the simulation. But since I'm logged in with an instructor account or a teacher account, I have the ability to move to different rounds as I want. If you're a student, you don't have this navigation. You have to go through and run simulation and go through each round at a time. But as a instructor, I'm going to jump ahead to round 2, which is part 2 of the foundations of public speaking. So again, every single round, I'm going to kind of skip over these first 3 from now on. They'll have the scenario video, their inbox, and the notifications hub where they answer questions. I will mention real quick, though, in the inbox, oftentimes they'll have something to download. Usually this just opens up in a separate tab where it'll have kind of frameworks for how they're going to present information, and then notifications hub. So now we're actually going to start looking at speech topics. So, and for this one, it's going to be just answering questions just to kind of come up with speech topic ideas. So what they'll do is it's similar to other interactions. This one's a little bit different. So it's going to be a recording that's at least 2 minutes, between 2 and 3 minutes. And we'll click start, and it'll say describe anything and everything a brick can be used for, including things that are non-traditional and random. So I have to record a video between 2 and 3 minutes describing this situation. Then I'll record a video, and that prompt will be there at the very top the whole time. I'll record the video answering these questions. I'll stop. I'll submit that recording, and then the next video I'll record will be on a different prompt. And now this is going to be a brainstorm for topics. So this is an ice-breaking activity. This one is actually brainstorming ideas for my IdeaCon speech. Same interaction where I'll get a prompt, and it's just kind of throwing ideas out there, just kind of brainstorming different speech topics for that IdeaCon speech. So for almost every single round, they're going to be in some way working towards that IdeaCon speech that they're working on. The next thing we're going to do is the City Hall speech outline. So basically what we're doing is we're evaluating the outline of a speech. So we're going to read it. There's an introduction, a body, a conclusion, and we're going to, on that same framework that we were just looking at before, we're going to evaluate how well it communicates its purpose. How well does it identify with the audience? And we're going to say, it's okay, it's excellent. And this is a scored interaction. So students will actually get feedback on how well or poor they did looking at and evaluating that speech outline. So they start by kind of identifying and evaluating a current one. Later on, they'll actually be building their own outlines and everything as they go. So the last part, again, is peer review. They'll get their students brainstorm videos, and they'll actually review their brainstorm videos as well. I'll show you what that peer review feature looks like. When I can show you in my own student results, I can see what the peer review was for my video submissions as well. So part 3 of foundations is first we evaluated the speech or the outline. Now we're going to evaluate the audience for the City Hall scenario that we were given, and also for our IdeaCon audience. So the City Hall audience, it'll give them, the audience of City Hall. So here's the mayor, here's a city council member. So we look at that and we say, all right, situation is it a classroom, conference, event, performance? Okay, it's an event, it's a City Hall meeting. They're going to be very informed about city issues, average income level. So students are going to be looking at, what the averages are, and just a little bit about like how many of them are, what's the political affiliation, that kind of stuff. So they're going to be analyzing the audience for this particular scenario, where they're kind of led through it, where here's this, and then they're going to kind of evaluate for, given different options. And then for the IdeaCon audience, they're going to be there's criteria available in your inbox and your resources, so they can click on resources and they can look at oh, here we go, audience analysis. So so they can start looking at it. Here's all the different information for the IdeaCon audience and statistics for previous IdeaCon audiences, and now they're actually going to do a write-up analyzing the IdeaCon audience. So at first they're kind of guided through it, and now they're given guidelines and just given a blank canvas and saying, all right, here, make an analysis of what the IdeaCon audience is, and that kind of thing. So they're kind of guided at first, given those simple steps, and then they're kind of given basic guidance and allowed to do that. So now we're going to move on to, so that was foundations. Now we're going to move on to impromptu, persuasive, and informative speeches, practicing each of those parts of speech. And then the last 2 rounds are really focusing on that IdeaCon speech, then finalizing everything for that speech. So moving on to impromptu. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to build our impromptu speech. And again, we're kind of given a specific scenario that we're working on. And here's our prompt: how video games evolved over time, and we have to come up with the best idea to present that idea and what order to do it in. And do that for a couple of different, 3, not just 2 different prompts. So that's impromptu speeches. Here's a written portion where they have to, they can take time and really kind of analyze what would be the best option. And next, for impromptu speeches, they're going to enter a waiting room, and they're going to be given prompts and have to record a quick little impromptu speech, a couple of minutes. And this is just practice. So they're going to do a practice impromptu speech and do self-review. And for round 5, they're going to do impromptu speeches and get peer reviewed by their classmates. So for each of these different types of speech, they'll have a practice where they self-review, and then a final video where they'll get peer reviewed. So for the practice speeches, again, we pull up this interaction. Again, at least 2 minutes and no longer than 2.5 minutes. And we'll click start, and it says, I really enjoyed your speech. What motivated you to speak on that subject?
Your speech. What motivated you to speak about that subject?
So then they'll have 5 seconds after that video. And then, boom, they got to do an impromptu speech on what motivated me to speak on the subject I was speaking on. And it's totally impromptu. They're given that 5-second warning after they get the prompt, and they're gone. And off to the races. So I won't bother submitting the video because it takes a second, but and I can resume it. So
I really really enjoyed your speech.
I skipped
What
ahead.
motivated you to speak about that subject?
There we go. We got 5 minutes. They'll get 2 different prompts. So you can see right up here, there's 1 and there's 2. It's recording. I'll stop and I'll submit that video. And once that is submitted, it will go on to the next one, just like
What
that.
got you interested in public speaking? I could never do that.
So it's kind of cool too. Like they got that 5 seconds, but they're not just reacting to what got you interested in public speaking. It's, oh, I could never do that. So they could address, well, I got interested in this way and I'm nobody special. So of course you could do it. Here's some ways to get started. There's lots of different ways that they can kind of approach that. But this is one that they're going to self-review. And you as the teacher can go into your grade book and review any of these students' videos that you want to watch and grade yourself separately or however you want to do it. The students will all get graded and get peer reviewed and all that kind of stuff and get scores for their work. But there we go. So there's the 2 impromptu practice speeches, and their videos will pop up after they finish it. This one they can resume later. If they didn't actually submit it, they can redo that second one. And then they'll do the self-review. So you can provide feedback on the one video that you did. So I can say, okay, now that I've done that, I can say, hey, I looked confident in my delivery. And I'd say, oh, yeah, I was pretty confident. I kept a good tone. I did okay. And they can actually do a full self-review and really kind of take the time to see how well they did. And self-reviews and peer reviews, students can save and close, come back to it. And once it's all filled out, they'll have the option to submit as well. So round 5, the impromptu part 2, they've got some new resources, and they've got a Journal of Education Innovation, and then they're actually going to and they're introduced to the framework that they're going to be using in the inbox and in the scenario video. And they'll be evaluating using that framework for each of these different resources. And now the final impromptu speech recording is right here. And this will be self-reviewed and peer-reviewed. So similar interaction. They'll click on that. They'll be given that prompt. They'll have a really short time frame to come up with their speech and really effectively communicate without having pre-prepared responses and things like that. And that will be self-reviewed and peer-reviewed. So now going on to persuasive, I'm going to try to move this a little bit faster. I don't want to take up the whole hour with just a real long presentation. You guys just listen to me drone on, but we definitely want to have a question and answer. Please fill up the chat with any questions you have because I'd love to answer them. Sometimes I tend to go too fast and I don't answer everything that needs to be answered. So for persuasive, we're going to, again, analyze persuasive speeches. We're going to be looking at persuasive speeches. There's 3 different speeches, and then we're evaluating and saying, hey, what frameworks were used? What were the speeches about? They're actually going to evaluate those persuasive speeches, and then they're going to outline their own persuasive speech. And so they're, again, given that kind of real close guidance. There's, just selection to pick from, and then they're actually writing their own outline. Here's a prompt. Use the text editor to outline your 3 to 5 minute speech. And so they're just writing an outline, not word for word speech. And again, resources, they're given resources and identifying those. And then a persuasive speech where they're actually practicing the persuasive speech. So they're given time to do the outline, and then they're actually practicing persuasive speech. Where again, they're record your first practice persuasive speech. So they've got their outline that they've written up, and now they can actually practice that persuasive speech. And they're given 5 minutes to do that. And then they'll have self-review because that was practice. They have a self-review where they can kind of evaluate how well they did And in round 7, for persuasive part 2, they're going to actually do their final recording and get peer reviewed. So for each of these, like I said, they'll have a chance to practice once before they submit for peer review. So again, scenario, inbox, notifications hub. Now they're doing their outline for their IdeaCon speech. So they've practiced doing outlines for a couple of different speech types. Now they're actually going to outline their speech for IdeaCon. So all through the simulation, they're kind of learning about the steps they need to take, and then practicing those steps for that big final presentation. And then they do their final recording for their persuasive speech. They get one practice recording that they self-review, and then the final recording that they then self-review and peer review. And then for round 8 is informative speeches. Very similar to the last one, we're going to analyze informative speeches. And these videos are great. We hired some really good actors to do these videos that are very good public speakers themselves. So students have really good quality video to evaluate that will help them kind of practice, so that when they are evaluating themselves, they've already kind of practiced evaluating others as well. Then we're going to, again, evaluate those videos that we just watched. We're going to outline our informative speech. We've just listened to some, we've analyzed and evaluated some. Now we're going to write our own outline and do a practice speech and self-review it. So very similar, just practicing 2 different types of public speaking. So for this one, now this one in particular, now we're actually starting to develop a presentation, a slide deck presentation. They're actually going to create an actual slide deck. They can title it, and then they're going to add slides. They can choose from different formats, how they want to present that information. They can add a title. They can add more content. They can edit that content, numbered lists, bullet lists. They can change the formatting however they want, and actually create a presentation for their informative speech. It's fairly basic, just kind of giving them basic slides and just a way to really convey that information. And then we'll do a peer review once you submit it. Once you finish it and submit it, you can review it, say edit it, or submit it. And then we'll do a peer review of other people's slide decks as well. You can say, hey, and it gives you a framework asking you questions after evaluating their slide decks. Pardon me. So once they're done with their presentation, now they're doing their final informative speech recording. Again, between 3 and 5 minutes, they'll click start, and it will record their informative speech. And then for that recording, they'll do a self-review and peer review of their classmates' work. So I'm going through this super fast. This is something that students will do a fair amount of work on before moving on to future rounds, because they have to have at least a certain number of students. You could set due dates for, at the end of the week, you have to have all your work submitted and your peer reviews finished by this day. You can set all those dates in our platform or in your LMS, however you want to set it up. So we'll do self-review and peer review. And then finally, for the last 2 rounds, rounds 10 and 11, the IdeaCon presentations, or preparations, IdeaCon preparations. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just do a draft of our whole speech, the IdeaCon speech. We're going to write everything out. This is something that'll probably take a good amount of time to do, drafting up the the speech, and then we're going to work on our presentation for IdeaCon. Students will want to take a good amount of time with this and really kind of come up with a good speech, good presentation, and all of that. And then they'll again have a chance to practice their IdeaCon speech and self-review it. Now, this is where, when they actually have a presentation, in fact, let me, just so I can show you guys what this looks like. once they have more than just one slide, now I go to the practice and I record a video. I've got slides, so I hit record and I'm practicing presenting with an actual slide deck that I can move back and forth with however I want to. So students will actually practice presenting in front of a camera with a slide deck and then self-review that video. And then for the final is the final cut for IdeaCon. This is when we'll have a chance to edit and change our presentation for IdeaCon, do the final recording, and then again, self-review and peer review. So the way that the peer review works, well, before I get into that, the final, once they finish all the different rounds, the students will get a certificate that outlines everything that they learned in the simulation. So they'll have their name, the date, Mimic Public Speaking for high school, and it shows that they have experience in all of these different frameworks and practices and conducting brainstorming techniques, all these different things that students are learning. They can either have a share link, put it on a PDF, they can share it on social media, all of that. So, so the way that the peer reviews work in the simulation, they will have, there's two different ways you can do it. And in fact, I'll go into the instructor portal on this side so I can show you what that looks like. But let me jump over to my other course where I've got it all finished up, and I can show you what the actual results look like and where you can view the videos and everything. So when a student finishes a round, so students can't navigate between rounds like you guys can, but they can review their results from previous rounds anytime. So if they've only finished the first 4 rounds, only these first 4 will be able to click on, and the rest will be faded out. So if I wanted to look at my results from round 1, here's my, that from round 1, those video calls and those different scenarios, here's how I did. And what it does is it gives them individualized feedback for each response. So I said, "Hi, Sarah, how are you doing today?" And it says, "Hey, here's a polite and friendly introduction." Some of it's good, but so this one, it says, "Hey, this option is friendly, but it doesn't use evidence to show why the problem is concerning." So there were some answers that are okay, but not the best. And it will give them feedback for each answer that they gave on each call. So it'll give them really detailed feedback for each part of those calls and how well you did. So here's the, IdeaCon speech conceptualization and then peer review. So when you do a self-review, it doesn't show up in your results, but the peer reviews do. So here's my video that I submitted, and round 1, this is the reading the story excerpt.
The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Palmer.
So I read the whole thing, and but it does show you. I rated myself higher than my peers. Because if I did peer feedback, hey, I rated myself as a 5. My peer rated me at about a 3, and that kind of thing. So I displayed a lot of confidence, but it wasn't necessarily up to par as far as what my peers thought. And sometimes you'll rate yourself lower, so it will show what it won't always present what so here's so it'll give you your response from your review and the peer review, pardon me. So it does show you both. So it'll show you how your feedback lines up with your peer feedback. So in this, again, this is just an example, but it will show them all of that for each round. So round 2, when I was evaluating the City Hall speech, I did a great job with that one and not so great with the rest, but it gives them really good feedback on to say, hey, my answer, I thought they did excellent on audience, and that was right. This one was satisfactory on information, but it'll tell them, I don't think so, and it'll tell them why that answer is not quite right for each individual answer. And then into peer review. And then round 3, so the students get really detailed results for their work. If they're analyzing the City Hall audience, I did a great job, and it'll tell me, this is why this answer was the best. If there was one that wasn't the best, it would tell me why it wasn't the best for each selection that I make. So as a student, I can see really detailed. It's like, this wasn't the best answer. This was really good. And it'll tell them why. So this, it'll tell them exactly why it did that. And so here's my other videos where here's the self-review and for each of these ones, because this was the practice round. And then round 5, down at the bottom, it will do my peer reviews and my self-reviews for all of that work. And then it'll give me feedback for how well I did evaluating the different resources that they had. So really detailed feedback for each part of it. If they recorded a presentation, they can even play that presentation anytime just by playing it in the results panel. So any previous video they've recorded or anything, they can always go back and watch it at any time just by going to their results. They can look at the final one, see all the peer feedback and their own self-review feedback that they give them for all of the different rounds. So there's a really, and when they do get feedback, it is anonymous. They see 3 peers and the overall scores that they got. So students can give honest feedback without worrying about retaliation and things like that. But that's kind of the basics of what I wanted to show you. Pardon me. But at any point in your own in our instructor portal in the gradebook, you can click on individual students and view basically see all of this same results and everything like that from your instructor portal too. You don't have to sign in as a student to see the student results. You can see that from the instructor portal as well. So that's pretty much what I had. We'll spend a few minutes on Q&A and make sure we get any questions answered that you guys have before we're done. So we'll have Andy come back on stage and I'll stick around to answer any questions you guys have.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. Really awesome stuff. One thing I particularly love about the simulation is it gives students so many opportunities to practice speaking and to really get a grasp of that. From what I've heard, of the little I've heard from public speaking teachers, that's the one thing they wish they had more of, is more opportunities for their students to speak. So it's really great. I saw a comment that said 21st century learning skills. And I was like, that's perfect. This is a 21st century skill that can really help your students.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead. I wrote some questions down that I saw in the chat. If you have any more, please type them now. We'll be sure to answer a couple of them. So what I have here for you, Joseph, it says, are the peer reviews the exact same questions as the self-reviews, as well as the grading, or are they different?
For each one, I believe they're the same for each video. So if it's a that I actually don't know for sure. Because I've done them all. I've done the self-review and peer review, even back to back. But that's one thing I didn't pay attention to, is when I'm evaluating myself and evaluating my peers, I think they're the same questions, but I would have to verify that. So I can stick around and verify that real quick if we want to. But if there are other questions, I can answer while I'm looking that up.
Yes, I have one that I can answer right now. So this one is it easy for the students to learn? And I feel like one thing that Joseph wasn't really able to highlight, since this just is a quick little webinar, is before every section, there are loads and loads and loads of instructions given to students that take them step by step on what the section is asking them. This is obviously, Joseph wasn't going to read all of those, but they're really easy and nice as a student, as a former student myself, not too long ago. It's something that is really helpful. So they know exactly what's being asked of them. And then if you guys were also able to see in those results rounds, it is, as you guys are able to see, step by step. This is what was right. This is what you could work on. This is maybe where you should improve. And again, as a student, having that detailed evaluation really is something that'll help. Obviously, some students need help more than others, and that's why they have you amazing teachers there to guide them and help them. But then if you guys also have questions, we have teams dedicated to help you guys out. that will happily jump on a call, answer any questions, and help you out so you guys know how to best answer your students. I'm really quickly before I forget, I am going to post the URL to the website so that everyone can go in and request access to it from there. Oh, sorry, while I pull this up. While I do this, maybe I can have Joseph answer another question for us. Can teachers see if they have actually practiced their speeches in the practice section?
Yes. So, in fact, I don't have, because the course where I had a whole bunch of students in it and everything, I wasn't the instructor in it, so I can't go to the instructor portal on that one. Let me answer the self-review and peer review really quick. They are the same. So it's the same questions, like the question of, did the presenter displayed confidence, the presenter remained clear. It's the same when you're self-evaluating and when you're evaluating your peers. So same questions, you evaluate yourself, and with the same questions, you evaluate your peers' video. So I just went in and verified that. At least for the first couple of rounds, I just checked them. And I don't believe it changes, but so they're evaluating themselves under the same criteria as everybody else.
Awesome.
But I can show you an example of the instructor portal, maybe with a different course, but it'll at least show you, because I don't have any students in my public speaking course where I could show you what the results look like in there, but I can show you what the instructor portal looks like and show you what you click on to view the student results, and it would just be those same navigation as it would be the same results that the students would see. So let me share my screen again really quick.
Yes, and while he does that, I did post it in the chat. It looks like you have to copy and paste that chat message I made. And that is the landing page where you guys can request access to the public speaking simulation, where you guys can go in and play it, or you can schedule a demo with your course consultant and they'll walk you through it all kind of more in depth and can answer your questions, maybe that apply more to your classroom.
Mm-hmm. So for an instructor, so just to kind of show you what it looks like. So in the instructor view, you'd have your student list. This is for a different course where it has students in it, but when you go and you click on, you could pick any student, any round. So if you wanted to watch anybody's practice video in round 4, you would just go and click on it and it would pop up with the results from that round. But it would be the same results that the students have when they click on their results in the simulation. So as the instructor, you can go in, you don't have to wait for other students to peer review. You can go in and review any videos that your students have submitted and for any portion of the assignments that they complete. So you can see everything your students have done just from that instructor portal by clicking on their names, and you can view everything this way, basically. We do have, for certain LMSs, depending on what you use, we can even integrate scoring now. So if you have, I'm not an LMS expert for what we have, but I know there's a few of the main LMS platforms that Canvas and Moodle and those platforms that we can sync up grading as well. So you wouldn't even have to take these scores and put them in your grade book manually if you use the LMSs that we can sync to thus far. So, but yeah, were there any other questions that came up on the chat?
Yes, I do. Really quick before I give another question, I'm posting another link in the chat. And this link leads you guys to one of our expert sessions. And in this expert session, we have someone who goes over kind of some of the kind of 4 important elements of great storytelling, which again is kind of part of public speaking, and it has a quiz with it within that webpage that you can give your students. So this is a little activity you can do with them. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, feel free to use that, copy and paste it. That's all there for you guys. One more question that I had. So Joseph was kind of able to answer. I know there were some questions about Google Classroom. At the moment, we're not able to integrate with Google Classroom, but we are integrated with our LMS on Canvas, Blackboard, and Moodle. So some of the most popular ones, but that is a constant thing we are working on just to make it easier for you guys. And then one last question. Can we see if they've watched the whole videos, referring to the actor videos, or can we see if they've watched a portion and then closed out?
That I don't know. I don't think so, but it will show, if that makes sense. If they don't watch the whole speech, it will show in how they answer the questions. But that's a good question, and actually a good concern that I can give to our product team, because that's something to consider as far as like reports that we can give to teachers and instructors. As it stands, I don't think so, but that's something that we can definitely work on.
Sweet. Awesome stuff. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. Those that are still here with us, feel free, request access to that. If you guys already have the high school all access pass, this is a simulation you can access right away and get started. Reach out to your customer success manager, and they should be able to help you set that all up with your class if you want to try it out. If not, use that original link I posted and request access, and reach out to someone, and they'll be able to help you guys out, get you guys this awesome simulation so your students can start practicing everything. I think we're going to go ahead and end right here so you guys can have a rest of your evenings and spend time with your families and friends. But thanks everyone for attending, and we'll catch you guys later.